The town where England's high-speed rail project was meant to terminate says it's facing bankruptcy, and that's after the government cancelled the second part of the planned route. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said in October that the benefits of the second phase would be better achieved through smaller alternative projects in the region. So the High-Speed 2 project, known as HS2, has had its route radically shortened. Well, Stuart tells us how that's affecting communities in England.
For Britain's railway, the town of Crewe is the gateway to the north of England, and the new $100 billion high-speed rail project was due to go through the town, bringing what the government promised would be once-in-a-generation benefits.
What we were expecting from HS2 was an increased capacity on our rail network locally, so the movement of goods in and around the area, north and south, was going to be improved. That would have freed up capacity for local passenger services and to free up the network. With it will have come investment, jobs, businesses locating in the area.
Specifically, 37,000 new jobs from a new commercial hub and upgraded train station, and an estimated $200 million a year for the local area. But now none of that will happen, with the high-speed line terminating 60 kilometres to the south in the UK's second largest city of Birmingham.
When we found out that the decision that the Prime Minister had taken to cancel HS2 was obviously devastating news. Both the public and private sector had been planning for this over the last 10, 12 years, and all plans going forward were based on the fact that HS2 was coming to Crewe, and all those plans now have been scuppered.
The Prime Minister cancelled the most northerly phase, citing massive cost overruns and delays. Unlike the southern portion of the project, construction here hadn't yet begun. But especially outside urban areas, much of the country has long been hostile to the project, in principle and due to the way it's been rolled out.
The landowner has had 60% of his land actually compulsory purchase, which is behind the fences there.
A few kilometres south in rural Madeley, there was jubilation when Rishi Sunak announced the train line would stop long short of their village.
We would have had 7 years of total disruption. Roads would have been closed, they would have been diverted, as well as the overall build process. And at its peak, 500 lorries a day taking the rubble away from the build.
Ahead of that process, HS2 has for years been purchasing hundreds of millions of dollars of land, drilling boreholes, and even started planting trees to mitigate future environmental damage. How HS2 and the government will reverse that process is the latest headache.
Pragmatically, you would expect that actually quite quickly the land could be handed back and the houses could be back on the market. That isn't the case. What we are told from a legal perspective is that the compulsory purchase order has to go through to completion, so landowners are still having to negotiate a purchase price from HS2, they're still having to negotiate compensation.
The HS2 project purchased 60% of Bernard Kettle's farmland to build a tunnel below his fields, but he's not received compensation, and there's no news on how he'll get his land or his money back.
They haven't given me anything. They're supposed to compensate me for the damage they've done to the fields. They're supposed to reinstate the fields, but nobody's been near. I'm just a statistic.
There's still no certainty about whether former landowners will be able to repurchase the now unnecessary plots, but even if they are, it will likely be sold at current market value, which could be much higher than the original owners received, potentially making it unaffordable.
Yeah, so this is one of the houses.
Others have long moved on. These once million-dollar mansions have largely been left empty for years, though the taxpayer is still paying for their maintenance and security, and will be until they can be sold. Further south, the construction of HS2 continues between Birmingham and London. Viaducts, bridges, railway tracks and tunnels are already being built.
My understanding is by completing phase 1 there is benefits across the whole network, and I said it can handle, I think, about triple the level of demand that is currently on the network.
In the south, HS2 will terminate at a revamped London Euston station. Cutbacks here too will mean fewer platforms and so less frequent services along the high-speed route. But industry insiders say all of this chopping and changing of plans is damaging investor confidence in the UK government's ability to deliver long-term, large-scale infrastructure projects. And with the opposition Labour Party looking like it's going to win this year's general election, and with HS2 still likely 10 years away from completion, industry insiders are worried about more uncertainty and future disruption. Stuart Smith, CNA, London.